When the lights faded in America's overlooked valleys, it wasn't just the factories that went dark. When the lights went out in America's forgotten valleys, they didn't just shut down factories, they extinguished entire lives. The hum of machines that once fed generations faded into silence, replaced by the hiss of polluted rivers and the creak of rusting steel. Along the Monongahela, the Ohio, and the Tennessee, water once clear enough to drink now runs thick with the grey sheen of chemical runoff. Abandoned brick mills stand like tombstones of a vanished promise. The air carries the ghost of iron and sweat, the memory of paychecks that once put food on tables now stained by corporate neglect. Across these industrial graveyards, tech giants rise elsewhere, in glass towers far away, celebrating green innovation, while the land that built the old America lies poisoned and jobless. A man named Robert still lives by the river. His father worked 30 years in the mill. They turned off the lights, he says, but nobody cleaned up the mess. The machines are gone. The guilt remains. After World War II, America's industrial heartland was the engine of the world. Steel from Pittsburgh, cars from Detroit, textiles from the Carolinas, factories that roared day and night built the middle class. But as the 21st century dawned, that world was quietly dismantled. Tech took over. The economy shifted from smoke to silicon, from rivers to data streams. The new wealth didn't come from the ground or assembly lines, it came from code. In Silicon Valley, fortunes multiplied overnight. Venture capital poured in, startups went public, and the gospel of disruption rewrote the American dream. Yet while the digital economy promised to connect everyone, it disconnected millions. Entire towns in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia were left behind, their jobs outsourced, their rivers poisoned, their young forced to migrate to urban tech hubs. Corporate giants spoke of innovation and sustainability, but the reality of production was outsourced overseas, to places where labor was cheaper, unions weaker, and environmental laws barely enforced. The clean, minimalist design of every device hid the dirt of its making: sweatshops, polluted water, exhausted workers. In the shadow of progress, the valleys went silent. Not by accident, but by design. In 2010, Apple's supplier Foxconn made global headlines when a string of young workers leapt from factory roofs in Shenzhen. Behind the polished iPhones and glowing logos was a brutal rhythm: 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, crowded dormitories stacked like honeycombs, and paychecks so small that despair became routine. Apple promised reforms, audits, and zero tolerance. But the same story repeated across other suppliers hidden behind NDAs and subcontractors. Meanwhile, Amazon's warehouses in the US became temples of efficiency and pain. Workers sprinted across endless aisles, tracked by scanners that punished even a pause for breath. When OSHA investigated, it found injury rates nearly double the industry average. In 2024, California fined Amazon millions for illegal quotas, proof that the human body couldn't compete with the machine it served. From China's assembly lines to America's fulfillment centers, the pattern was identical: efficiency first, humanity second. Each new technological breakthrough, each thinner laptop, faster chip, or next-day delivery came at an invisible cost, paid by people and places deliberately forgotten. The world applauded innovation, but beneath the applause, something was rotting. Quietly, chemically, irreversibly. The brilliance of modern capitalism isn't just in what it creates, it's in what it hides. Big tech perfected a system of invisible hands, where every fingerprint of guilt was wiped clean through layers of subcontractors. Apple doesn't own Foxconn. Amazon doesn't run the factories that make its devices. Google doesn't manage the cobalt mines that power its servers. But each depends on them. The strategy is surgical. Outsource the dirtiest labor, offshore the environmental risk, and retain only the clean image. Supply chains are split across continents, ownership blurred by shell corporations and third-party logistics. When scandals surface, the corporation expresses concern, then shifts production to another country, another supplier, another shadow. It's called plausible deniability. Legally clean, morally filthy. The profits flow back to headquarters, the waste back to the ground. This is globalization's perfect trick. Pollution without borders. Responsibility without owners. By the time a phone reaches your hand, its story has already traveled through a dozen countries and left a mark on every one of them. In the coastal province of Guangdong, children play beside rivers the color of ink. Tests reveal lead and mercury levels hundreds of times above safe limits. Runoff from the factories that once produced the devices now sitting on Western desks. Fishermen speak of metal fish, slick and lifeless, floating on chemical foam. Thousands of miles away in the heart of America, warehouse workers suffer torn ligaments, heat exhaustion and chronic pain, injuries of speed, not accident. Every second counts in the algorithm's empire. A single missed scan can mean lost wages or dismissal. And in Ghana or India, the circle closes. E-waste from the same devices returns as poison. Informal recyclers, often children, melt circuit boards over open fires, inhaling fumes to extract copper and gold. For every gleaming gadget, there's a lung darkened by its making. Economists call it externality. Communities call it betrayal. The wealth of one generation has been built on the exhaustion of another, and the earth beneath it all keeps the receipts. The digital revolution promised freedom, but it delivered a new kind of dependency. Nations that once powered their economies through industry now depend on fragile global supply chains, a web so efficient it can collapse overnight. A typhoon in Asia, a labor strike in Mexico, a shipping delay in the Red Sea, and billions of dollars vanish from Western markets within hours. At home, inequality deepens. Tech CEOs become trillionaires while the towns that built the old America decay. The social contract, work hard, live decently, has dissolved into code, automation, and outsourced accountability. The cost isn't just economic, it's moral. When profit becomes borderless, responsibility evaporates. Environmental collapse, labor exploitation, and economic fragility aren't accidents. They're design features of the system that fuels our screens, and the longer we stare into them, the less we see the damage behind the glass. History's greatest revolutions always carried a price. The steam engine blackened skies, the assembly line crushed individuality. But the digital revolution hides its smoke. It pollutes quietly, through silence, invisibility, and indifference. We celebrate innovation yet outsource its pain. We recycle slogans, not waste. We upgrade devices faster than we upgrade ethics. And every year as profits climb, the gap between the promise of technology and its human cost widens. But accountability is not impossible, only inconvenient. Governments can enforce transparency across supply chains. Consumers can demand sustainability that means more than PR. Investors can stop rewarding short-term greed disguised as efficiency. The future won't be written in code alone. It will be written by how honestly we confront the wreckage behind our progress, by how we rebuild trust between creation and consequence. Because innovation without conscience isn't evolution. It's erosion.